Welcome to a brand new deep dive. Today, we are looking at something so ingrained in our daily routines that we rarely give it a second thought.
Yeah, we just do it completely on autopilot.
Exactly, the actual physical mechanics of counting. And we have an incredibly diverse stack of sources to sift through today.
We really do. It's quite the mix.
Right. We've got English as a second language lesson plans, detailed phonetic pronunciation guides.
Some real-life conversational transcripts.
Yeah, and even a strategic guide on marketing psychology, which sounds wild, but it all connects.
It does. That eclectic mix of documents might seem kind of disconnected at first glance, but they all circle around a very specific universal theme. Our mission today is all about counting together.
Counting together.
We are unpacking the literal building blocks of how we express quantity in the English language.
And we are starting from the ground up. We're looking at the actual physical mouth movements required to articulate numbers, then moving into the hidden grammar rules of plurals.
And ultimately arriving at how we use the concept of quantity to drive human behavior.
Which matters to you, the listener. Whether you are teaching a student, brushing up on communication fundamentals, or just fascinated by the underlying psychology of how we speak.
Right.
Understanding the mechanics of how we quantify the world gives you a whole new appreciation for the words you use every single day.
Absolutely. And to really grasp this, we have to start at the very beginning with the phonetic architecture of counting from 1 to 10.
It sounds so basic.
It does. We often treat counting as a basic cognitive function. We teach it to toddlers. But mechanically speaking, articulating a string of numbers is an incredibly complex orchestration of breath, vocal cords, and muscle movement.
It's an athletic event for your face.
It literally is. The source material from Rachel's English provides this brilliant phonetic breakdown, and it makes you realize how much physical labor goes into simple digits.
Yeah, let's break some of these down, because as a native speaker, you don't even feel it happening.
Right, let's take the number 3, for example. I'm going to say it very slowly and clearly.
Yeah.
3.
Hey.
It is notoriously difficult for non-native speakers to master because it requires that unvoiced the sound. Your tongue literally has to come physically through your teeth, pushing air out before it immediately pulls back into the mouth for this position.
And then finally widens into the E vowel.
Exactly. You are forcing a muscle to break the barrier of your teeth and retreat in a fraction of a second.
It's crazy when you slow it down.
Then we look at the number 6.
Yeah.
6. The phonetic structure here is a study in symmetry, but with a sharp interruption right in the middle.
Like a roadblock.
Yes. The word begins and ends with the exact same unvoiced sound. But right in the middle, your tongue has to jump up to the roof of your mouth to form a sharp K consonant sound.
It functions like a tiny linguistic sandwich. You have smooth airflow, a sudden physical block of air, and then smooth airflow again into that final 6.
Perfectly said.
And then
we move to 10. 10.
That one feels a bit more open.
It is. This number is a masterclass in vowel placement and tongue sweeping. You use the E sound, the same vowel found in the word bed.
Bed.
Right. You start with the hard T, where air is released forcefully through the teeth, open wide to that E, and then your tongue sweeps all the way up to touch the roof of your mouth to create the final N sound.
Looking at language through this microscopic lens, it reveals that speaking is basically a highly choreographed dance routine.
Happening entirely inside your mouth.
And this physical complexity becomes a massive hurdle when we look at how language is actually taught. In the conversational transcripts from English Vibes, there's a fascinating interaction that highlights the friction between how English is spelled and how it sounds.
Oh, the Tom and Anna transcript.
Yes. A teacher named Tom is helping a beginner student named Anna, who is really struggling to pronounce the number 1. And Tom tries to offer a visual cue. He tells her, it's a 1 with a nice O sound.
Which is a complete phonetic illusion.
Total illusion. Tom is looking at the orthography, the spelling, O-N-E, and assuming the letter dictates the sound.
But if we analyze the phonetics, the word 1 does not start with an O sound at all.
Not even close.
It begins with a W consonant sound. It's identical to the word won, as in winning a game.
To properly articulate 1, your lips must form a very tight little circle to generate that W sound before relaxing and dropping the jaw for the sound, kind of similar to the word butter.
So telling a student to make an O sound actively leads their mouth astray. The English spelling system frequently fights against English phonetics. It forces the learner to memorize mouth shapes that directly contradict the letters on the page.
I highly encourage you, listening right now, to try making these shapes. Wherever you are, just slowly say 3, 6, 10, 1. Pay attention to where your tongue goes.
Feel your lips making that tight circle for one.
It connects you to the mechanics of your own voice. It really highlights the physical effort behind something we consider completely effortless.
It does. And moving beyond the physical articulation of abstract numbers, we have to look at what happens when we apply those numbers to the physical world.
Right, because saying two is different from saying two boxes.
Exactly. Transitioning to that introduces the grammar of quantity. When we count physical things, we introduce plural nouns. And the lesson plans from Learn English Feel Good illustrate that pluralization is rarely as simple as just adding an "es" to the end of a word.
We all know the basic rule, right? Add an "as" for most items, cat becomes cats. But what is fascinating in these ESL sources is how the grammar rules are actually forced to adapt to the physical limitations of the human mouth.
Specifically regarding sibilant sounds.
Right.
If a noun already ends in a sibilant, a hissing sound like sis, sex, or your mouth physically cannot easily attach another "es" sound to it.
If you try saying the word bus and then force another "as" immediately after it, you get a prolonged hiss. Bus.
The airflow is already restricted, so adding the same restriction produces an unnatural, unbroken sound.
To solve this anatomical problem, the grammatical rule dictates adding "e's."
But the phonetic impact of that rule is massive. Adding that "e's" forces a completely new syllable into the word. Bus becomes buses. Watch becomes watches.
You are fundamentally altering the rhythm and the metric beat of the entire sentence just to accommodate the physical limits of human airflow.
And once we master pluralizing the things we have, we encounter the complex grammar of asking for things we don't have.
Ah, yes, the Woodward English Grammar Guide. This lays out one of the most common stumbling blocks for English learners.
It's fascinating because English forces speakers to categorize the entire universe into two distinct philosophical groups before they can even construct a question about quantity.
You must decide instantly if the item is something you can physically count or something you cannot. Countable nouns versus uncountable nouns.
Right. If you are asking for a number of items that you can point to and count individually, like apples, chairs, or days in January, the grammar demands the phrase, how many?
Asking for a number. How many apples do you have?
Exactly. However, if you are referencing something abstract or a massive substance, the rule shifts. You cannot count individual units of water.
So you must ask, how much water is in the fridge?
Right. You cannot count individual units of time. So it becomes, how much time do we have? The phrase how much applies to uncountable concepts like sugar, traffic, or price.
You don't ask, how many does this jacket cost? You ask, how much did your jacket cost?
Native speakers make this cognitive decision in a fraction of a second, entirely on autopilot. But when you slow it down analytically, you realize the speaker is performing a rapid categorization of physical reality before their vocal cords even engage.
And speaking of rapid cognitive decisions, the TIFL method source outlines a lesson plan that exposes another brilliant phonetic illusion.
Oh, the pocket game.
Yes, it involves a game called What's in Your Pocket. The teacher explains the rules for using the article a versus the article an.
The grade school rule we are all taught is to use a before a consonant and before a vowel. A cat, an apple.
But the source deliberately trips students up by putting the word unicorn and the acronym MP3 on the whiteboard.
Because if a student follows the visual spelling rule, they will write a unicorn and a MP3.
Both of which feel incredibly clunky to say out loud, and that brings us right back to the phonetic architecture we discussed earlier. The grammatical rule is not dictated by the spelling on the page.
It is dictated entirely by the sound produced in the throat.
The word unicorn begins with the letter U, which is a vowel, but phonetically it begins with a hard U consonant sound, unicorn.
Because the mouth is producing a consonant sound, the correct article is a unicorn.
Conversely, MP3 starts with the consonant M, but the pronunciation of the letter itself begins with an A, vowel sound, A.
Because it produces a vowel sound, it takes an MP3.
The entire system is designed to prevent a glottal stop. Your vocal cords naturally want to avoid the awkward sudden halt in airflow required to pronounce two vowel sounds back to back.
Saying a unicorn forces your throat to abruptly stop and restart. Saying a unicorn allows the breath to glide smoothly.
It's all about smooth airflow. But you know, while we spend so much time analyzing these rigid rules of exact quantities, the conversational transcripts from Better English for World Time You reveal a contradictory pattern in natural human speech.
Humans are remarkably imprecise.
We really are. When you analyze transcripts of actual conversations, exact numbers frequently disappear entirely. People naturally default to vague quantifiers.
Instead of stating, I have 2 microphones, a speaker is far more likely to say, I have a couple of microphones.
For slightly larger undefined numbers, the default is a few, or some. When dealing with massive amounts, speakers rarely bother estimating digits at all. They rely on phrases like, a lot of.
Our brains inherently prefer the efficiency of a general impression over the cognitive labor of exact accuracy.
Which makes sense.
It does. And this observation transitions us perfectly into understanding how we actually learn these complex systems. If counting, pluralizing, and categorizing nouns requires so much active cognitive processing, how do educators effectively cement these rules into a learner's brain?
The sources show that the most effective pedagogy relies on play and narrative to manipulate cognitive load.
The games.
The games are fantastic. There is a worksheet from Teach This, where students spell out numbers to crack a code, revealing the hidden message, English is fun.
And another source, TEFL Methods, outlines an alphabet shopping memory game.
Oh, that one sounds tough. Students sit in a circle and build a list. I bought an apple. Then the next person says, I bought an apple and a balloon. Next person, I bought an apple, a balloon, and a camera.
As an adult reading that exercise, you immediately recognize how difficult it becomes after just a few rounds. The cognitive load required is immense.
Analyzing why these games are pedagogically effective reveals the mechanics of working memory.
Right. Asking a student to memorize a static list of vocabulary words relies on rote memorization, which is fragile. It's easily forgotten.
But the shopping list game forces the brain to juggle multiple complex tasks simultaneously within its phonological loop. The student is holding a growing sequence of items in their working memory,
while applying the phonetic rules of a versus an in real time.
Scanning their vocabulary for a noun, starting with the next sequential letter of the alphabet.
And articulating it all out loud under the social pressure of a group setting.
Because the brain is working so hard to balance those mental plates, the underlying language concepts are cemented far more deeply than they would be through passive reading.
The neural pathways are reinforced through active, multi-layered problem solving. The game forces the brain to utilize the rules rather than just observe them.
Now, to contrast that high-pressure cognitive juggling act, I want to look at a moment from the VocalVibe English source. This approach is learning from the exact opposite direction.
This is a great example.
It features a transcript of 2 English coaches, Mark and Sarah, teaching the concept of counting. Mark places a jar on his desk and asks, "Look at all these colorful marbles. I wonder how many are here."
He is deliberately setting up a classic how many countable nouns scenario.
Asking for a number.
Exactly. But what is brilliant about this transcript is the intentional reduction of cognitive pressure. By anchoring an abstract language concept to a physical object, the marbles, Mark and Sarah are bypassing the working memory bottleneck we just discussed in the shopping game.
They proceed to take the marbles out and count them together. They alternate turns. Mark says 1, Sarah says 2. The pacing is slow, clear, and immensely patient.
Very encouraging tone.
Very. And what we are analyzing here isn't just a simple counting exercise. We are looking at the psychology of removing performance anxiety in adult learners.
In linguistics, this is known as lowering the affective filter.
The affective filter.
When a learner is anxious or overwhelmed by cognitive load, their brain essentially blocks the input of new language. By creating a predictable, rhythmic, and physically grounded exercise, Mark and Sarah eliminate that anxiety.
The learner's brain can fully focus on the phonetic articulation of the numbers without worrying about syntax or memory retrieval.
And the transcript concludes with a highly satisfying pedagogical resolution.
A happy ending. Sarah and Mark successfully count all the colorful marbles, reaching exactly 10. They don't lose count or drop any pieces.
By reaching that perfect, complete set of 10, they provide the learner with a completed cognitive loop. They demonstrate the grammar, model the patience required, and achieve the goal cooperatively.
It's beautiful, really. And this idea of managing cognitive bottlenecks and simplifying the mental load for ESL students translates directly into our final source.
This is where we pivot to strategy.
Yes. We are analyzing how adult native speakers process numbers when asked to make a decision. If we want to understand the true power of quantity in communication, we have to look at the psychology of the number 1.
We're pulling from an article by Sound Cartel regarding marketing strategy and podcasting, specifically focusing on a concept coined by Amanda McLaughlin called the one-shot rule.
We've spent this entire time dissecting plurals and how many and a lot of, but in the landscape of 2026, when you need to persuade a human being to take action, plurals are your absolute enemy.
The article paints a stark picture of the modern audience's mental state. Listener attention is fiercely protected. We are all constantly navigating AI-generated summaries, short-form video overload, endless push notifications.
The algorithm-driven feeds.
Yes. And decision fatigue is a documented psychological condition where the quality of decisions deteriorates after a long session of decision-making.
But wait, if I'm a marketer or a manager, doesn't restricting myself to just one call to action hurt my chances of cross-promoting my other platforms? If I have a captive audience, shouldn't I give them every opportunity to engage with my material?
You would think so.
Yeah.
But the source justifies that loss of potential engagement through the paradox of choice.
The paradox of choice.
The one-shot rule dictates that giving people a plural amount of choices drastically reduces the likelihood of them taking any action. If you tell an audience, please subscribe to the show, leave a 5-star review, download our free guide, and follow us on Instagram, the cognitive load becomes too high.
The brain experiences the exact same overload as the ESL student failing the alphabet shopping game. When asked to juggle too many simultaneous requests, the brain simply drops all of them and moves on to the next piece of content.
To combat this, the source outlines the 4 S's of a highly effective call to action. It must be specific, singular, simple, and strategic.
Let's break this down.
Specific means eliminating any ambiguity about what you're asking the person to do. Singular means it's a one and only request being made. Simple means the physical path to complete the action is frictionless, requiring no complex forms or multiple clicks. And strategic means the action directly aligns with your primary goal.
When you refine your request down to one perfect action and deliver it without the clutter of alternative options, the psychological friction disappears. The likelihood of the person following through increases dramatically because you have respected their cognitive limits.
You have done the work of prioritizing on your end, which makes it effortless for them to succeed on theirs.
And this principle extends far beyond marketing. It is a fundamental truth of human psychology. If you are leading a team meeting and assign 5 different priority tasks to your staff at the very end, you guarantee confusion and poor execution.
Or if you ask your partner for help around the house and list 6 different chores in one breath, most of them will be forgotten.
Narrowing your request to one specific, actionable item is the most effective communication strategy available, regardless of who you are speaking to.
It all distills down to the undeniable power of one.
Let's take a moment to look back at the incredible path we've mapped out today. We started by examining the micromechanics of the human mouth, pinpointing the physical barricades our tongues build just to articulate the word 6.
We navigated the rigid, philosophical grammar of distinguishing how many from how much.
And exposed the sound-based secret behind the articles A and N. We analyzed how deliberate pacing and physical objects lower the effective filter in language learning, as modeled beautifully by Mark and Sarah counting their 10 marbles.
And finally, we uncovered the deep psychological leverage of the one-shot rule, proving that in a world overwhelmed by plurals, a singular focused request is the key to driving action.
This exploration really highlights how deeply mathematical our language is and conversely, how linguistically driven our daily actions are.
Before we go, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over on your own. We spent a significant amount of time today dissecting countable and uncountable nouns. We categorize the world into things we can assign a hard number to, like marbles or microphones.
And things we cannot, like water or time.
Take a moment to think about the uncountable things in your own life. Concepts like time, stress, love, or happiness. Because we lack the linguistic ability to put a precise, exact number on these concepts, how does that change the way we value them? Do we naturally prioritize the physical, countable things we can easily track in a spreadsheet simply because our language makes them easier to quantify?
That is a phenomenal question to end on. It forces you to rethink the metric by which we measure our own priorities. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into language, numbers, and the mind. Keep asking questions, keep noticing the little things, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.